Hello, everyone. Tara Williams here with the Mom Manual. I have another amazing guest for you guys today. Diane Boden runs Minimalist Moms podcast, and she focuses on living and parenting with simplicity. She's also a mom of three. I am so excited. Diane, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm glad we can connect.
I know this one is very exciting for me, particularly because I have four children. We just moved and I run a business. Plus, I have my husband and two guinea pigs. My
Sure.
life is not decluttered and is not simple. So I'd love to hear how you got into this. Give us everybody your whole background story.
Yeah. So I'll share just slightly about my minimalist pursuits and then I can talk a little bit about the podcast as well. But I always tell people I was quite the opposite of a minimalist prior to discovering the term, which I think actually when I discovered, well, let me share the story. So back when my husband and I were first married, we were searching for something in my parents' basement. And to paraphrase him, he looked at me and said, "Look at all these things that are now in boxes that were once your dad's hard-earned working hours." And up
Oh,
until that point, yeah, up until that point, I was someone that prior to getting married, got myself into a lot of credit card debt. I was able to pull myself out of that. But I mean, that was a big struggle, a big weight on my shoulders to be an 18-year-old and rack up a bunch of credit card debt. So about 18 to 20, which again, I know that sounds really young and silly, but it was the weight of the world felt to like it was on me at that point in time. So flash forward, I did get a little bit of that under control, but I still had this desire just of, I want all the things. I want everything new. I don't want anyone to see me in the same thing more than once. I
mm,
really would say that my identity was found in, uh, it wasn't even just my looks. It was just like, what can I obtain? Because I am obviously not enough. And so I just need these things to elevate who I am. Again, just really low
mm,
self-confidence, and the things were going to get me there. So
yeah.
flash forward to that moment with my husband and I. And then at that point in time, we didn't have a conversation to be like, yes, let's go deeper. And what does this mean for us
Right.
now? It was really just something that got me thinking about, okay, my money does equal, my time does equal my money.
Yeah.
And therefore, I want to make sure that I'm cultivating a life that I desire, that aligns with our values, and that
Mm,
I don't one day look to my basement and have a bunch of things that are unused, which I will say, I always, I don't want to throw my parents under the bus telling this story because I do think I had an idyllic childhood. However, I think the part of minimalism, which we'll get there about sentimentality, but just also, why are we keeping things so long? Why do we feel like we can't let go of things? So that was something else I kind of started thinking
mm.
about at that point in time. So that's a little bit about how I started. I would say when the minimalist term came into my vocabulary, it probably wasn't for several more years later, but to get myself to be, I guess, even more frugal or intentional, I just really stayed out of stores. I wasn't going to Target as often. And if I did go into one of those stores or to the mall, I would say, okay, this is something you can put on your wish list. And if in 30 days or 3 weeks you still like it,
Mm.
then you can pull the trigger, because it means it wasn't just a fleeting high of wanting something new. It was something you thoughtfully made a decision for and to own. And most often than not, it would fade and I wouldn't want it anymore. And so I just felt like, okay, I'm getting good at this. I'm strengthening this muscle, and I'm going to just keep pursuing this life with less. So I've said a lot. We can
I
talk about any
know.
of those things.
I'm like, whoa, so much to unpack. Well, it's really interesting because I think about I have a 5-year-old and in the Target or wherever store we're in, every single time he wants something. And it's so important, it's so dire, and he needs it. And as you were talking, I was like, wow, that's almost seems like you had this like childlike pursuit of just buying things.
Oh yeah.
I my I guess mentality is like so different from that. Like I want to save everything. I want to live below my means. Like I actually get anxiety when there is clutter, and
Mhm.
like I don't want anything in my house. I don't buy extra stuff. Like Target packages aren't coming to my home. Like I don't want any of that. Like it like literally like gives me anxiety. And these are on YouTube too. So when you're watching, you can see I'm like, like I don't want it near me. So why you said you felt like it was you had a low self-esteem and you were using material things to like build up that image of yourself, or tell me about that because I just think that's so interesting.
Yeah. So I will also say I'm sure a lot of the women listening to your podcast, you said a lot of them are new moms or getting ready to have babies. I have 3 kids of my own. And
Yeah.
prior to all of that, I would also say I've always struggled with body image because I'm almost 6 feet
Mm,
tall and I was never bone thin. I was never athletic. I ended up drinking a lot in college. So I gained a ton of weight. And again, I was able to lose some of that, but it was the insecurities were always there because it was always like creeping up,
mm,
like, oh, you could always go back to that. But something that was connected to the things as well. As I kind of got into my late 20s, early 30s, I started observing the women around me and just like actually noticing bodies and body, like a variety of different types of bodies. And I realized, oh my gosh, none of your friends look the same. And also, that's not why you like them. You don't like them whether they gain weight or lose weight. You like them for who they are. You don't like them
mm.
for the things that they can give to you or the things that they, have in their homes. You truly love them for who they are. And so I was actually able to overcome some of my body image issues there in my early 30s, which also could just be an age thing, just kind of switching that in my brain, like, why do I value people? But I think a lot of the same thing was happening back in my early 20s with the things of why am I valuable to people? And honestly, if I have this hustle and need to like keep on up with the Joneses, quote unquote, I'm probably going to be less of an appealing person to people around me because I'm so consumed and my focus is on these other things or just needing to accumulate. And I will still say, I do like things. I still love clothes, but I just have different habits I put into practice in keeping the clothes that I have. So like the one in, one out rule where I
Mm.
try not to add more hangers. I just get rid of something if I want something new. I still practice that rule of saying like, okay, I'm going to keep it in my mind for a few weeks. And if I still want it, I will not. And then also, this is something, it's recent development. I'm really into the Lucky brand. And I was looking through some of their stuff and I'm like, you know, you already have a t-shirt like that. And also you're going to get that t-shirt. It's going to feel really exciting when you get it in the mail the first time you wear it. And then you're going to hang it in your closet and you're not going to wear it. Like it's going to fade. Like
Yeah.
our purchases fade with anything. Just think about anything you
Mm.
really love. The majority of our possessions, it's only in those first few moments. Sorry, again, I'm tangenting, but it's only in those first few moments that we really have that passionate excitement of receiving it. And then it goes away. And so it's like, okay, I just want to be a lot more intentional about the money going out. I hope
Yeah.
that answers your
Well,
question.
no, no, that's perfect. So much of this is like simply a mindset, right? It's that
Yeah.
scarcity mindset versus abundant mindset. Like this is just a mindset. When I was growing up, my grandparents lived in the same town as us. They were like almost a second set of parents to me. They were over all the time. They were always helping. My dad worked a ton. So like my grandmother was over all the time. Super close relationship with them. And my grandfather would always say, "You're working for the rags." And the rags mean like his parents were born in Ireland. He was one of like 11
Mhm.
kids, and they would take clothes. And when they got really raggy, they would literally use them as a rag. So he would say,
Yeah.
"You're working for the rags." And because my mom and my grandmother like love shopping, but they more like discount shopping, but they just like accumulate stuff. Like my
Mhm.
mom's house has just like a candle and a picture frame and a knickknack and a wreath and like there's just like stuff everywhere. So I think
Mhm.
for that was always just so embedded in my mind. And then when I went to college and like had my own dorm and even like my first apartment when I got married, like my parents would come to my house and be like, "Your house is like a museum. Like you have nothing in your house." But I think it was just like, it wasn't even about saving money. It was just like, I don't want things around me. So
Mhm.
you've done this like deep work. What is the psychology of why I'm on such the polar opposite end? Like, what is the
Mhm.
reason for that?
Oh, yeah. What is the reason of why? Like, are you talking about the research or what I found in my,
Diagnose me.
oh, of why you don't like the stuff?
Yeah, like so
Oh,
you
yeah.
were seeking to have the things. I'm seeking literally to have nothing. And it's not an
Oh.
intentional way of me saying like I want to be a minimalist. Like it's just like
Mhm.
I don't want things around me. It like stresses me out.
Well, yeah. So there are studies done out of this was back in 20, I think 12.
Yeah.
UCLA did a big study. It was called Life at Home in the 21st
Uh-huh.
Century. I would say don't buy the book because it's actually a study. So it's kind of dense and dull, but some of the
Yeah.
things, the nuggets that you can pull out of it are quite fascinating. But they observed these families around UCLA, or maybe it was Stanford. Now I'm like misquoting it. It was Stanford or UCLA. Regardless, the statistics or the studies showed that the messier the home, the more anxiety that moms felt. And it also
Mm,
the burden fell on the moms of the home. Most often than not, even if we're working outside of the home, a lot of that just generally will fall on us. I do think that moms are more of a caretaker. Again, I'm making generalizations here, but
yeah.
we want to take control of those things and it feels good. And also, like, I just kind of like things the way that I like them. But yeah, the correlation between your mindset and your overwhelm and the things, think about when you enter your home and it's messy and you just are walking out from the crazy, chaotic world. And the first thing that you see when you walk into your entryway is clutter. You automatically, you
Yeah.
have your shoulders down when you walk in, or maybe they're a little bit tight from the day. And then automatically it's
Right.
like, oh, like, great, I have all this stuff to do. And then you have this like tenseness in your shoulders. Yeah, your health suffers when you have too much. And I've seen it because I have I have the opposite feeling now that I'm more similar to you, where it's like, I don't need all this stuff because then I have to manage it. It's my inventory that I have to manage. And also now that I have 3 kids and 2 jobs, I can't possibly commit myself to keeping all of this stuff and cleaning all of this stuff. Kind of keeping your
Mm,
surfaces clean is a really helpful thing, especially when you have babies. And again, if someone's listening to this and they're postpartum, give yourself some grace. You'll get there. Go slow and steady. It's not going to be an overnight haul. There are still things that I struggle with, but I think if you just do a little bit at a time, or even get your partner on board with saying like, hey, we're both going to do 15 minutes today, that's a half hour you've done in a day, because it's combined time where you've said, let's just intentionally limit the things that we have in here, go through them.
mm,
And again, we can talk about sentimentality and how that plays a role. But I think that your mind, Tara, is just feeling the weight of all of that stuff. And again, with
yeah.
your saying like you're working for rags, you're just valuing your time. Like you'd rather spend it with your
Yeah.
family, go on vacations, I'm assuming.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. No, that's, and not to get like too deep on the podcast, because this, I don't go deep on these usually, but
Uh-huh.
so I'm one of 5 kids. And when I was a sophomore in high school, my mom had my twin brothers. They're
Okay.
16 years younger than me. And then in the same year, like my grandmother died. My godfather, who I was super close to, my mom's brother, like had ALS and he died. Like it was just this very chaotic year. And then
Mm-hmm.
my dad decided like he was going to quit work and stay home. My mom went into this crazy deep depression, like didn't get out of bed. So I'm a sophomore in high school and I started cleaning my house all the time. So I think it would be like, I could have like turned to drugs, or like I was
Mm-hmm.
seeking control because my life was in one year just completely turned upside down and it became so chaotic. Like I was getting pulled out of school to like watch my brothers because my mom couldn't get out of bed. I mean, like it was a really, really rough little bit there. And it was just like, and I remember my mom would say, like, I love when you get like this, because I would literally like clean my floor, like scrub them until my knuckles were like raw, because I was just trying to find some control, because it was out of control. So I think that was like a catalyst for me to then say, when I see things, it almost like brings me back to that chaotic time in my house when it looked like a hoarder's. Like there was just stuff everywhere. Nobody was cleaning. Like not even picking up things. So like then I would like go through and like get everything. But it's interesting you talked about being sentimental, because my mom also saves everything, like every box. Like we joke, we're like, you are literally a hoarder. Like, why do you have this trinket that I made when I was 4 years old? But she says to me, because I throw everything out. Like we have nothing from my kids' childhood. They each have like a box of papers and like a few little baby clothes. And other than that, I'm like, that's it. Nobody needs anything else. But she's like, you're not sentimental. You're so cold because you don't want to save these things and you just discard them and you have no like connection to them. So talk to me about that sentimental side and decluttering. Like, what does that look like?
Yes. So I think I've been accused of the same thing, of being cold with some of the things that my
Yeah.
parents have chosen to keep. I do always say this to my daughter. I say, if everything's your favorite, nothing's your favorite.
Mm,
Favorite means it's one thing. And also we can be sentimental. So for example, I have this story that I just was telling you. I recently moved. And so I was in my basement, in my own basement this time. And I found a box of my old DVDs. And DVDs to me represented a time where I was a huge movie buff, where on the weekends, when everyone in Columbus was watching OSU Buckeyes, I was at the movies by myself. Like, it was just my favorite thing to do.
Yeah.
Opening that DVD. Oh, and just like old movies too, where my family is a little bit older. Like my dad's 75, I'm 35. So I grew up watching really old movies, and
Yeah.
yeah, they're just special to me. So anyways, open up these DVDs and I realized, oh, I really want to keep these. Like, how can I possibly get rid of these? And then I realized I haven't watched a DVD in 13 years. I don't own a DVD player. And
I was gonna say, could you even play a DVD?
yeah. And the thing is, like, I haven't done that. My habits have shown consistently for 13 years that I'm not someone that sits down to watch a DVD anymore. And again, kind of like out of sight, out of mind, I felt that emotional pull, not rational pull. I felt
Right.
emotional about something that I didn't even consider until that moment. And so I was like, I'm just going to get these out. I found a, retirement home where I called and I was like, hey, would your residents want to go through these and keep them for their library? And they were so thrilled. So I was able to drop off all these DVDs. And so that made me feel really good too, because I knew they were going to somewhere that would use them. But I think so much with sentimentality, like maybe the things your mom was going through, or when we go through our kids' newborn clothes, and maybe that was our last baby. And maybe that's a really hard thing to do because we have all this tie to the fact with, I'm not going to be pregnant again. And that is something that we have to grieve, but that item is a representation of that you have to grieve and that you have to go through in your mind. And like you said, it is deep work. I think that's something I've learned with pursuing a life with less, or intentional living, however you want to call it. But like minimalism and decluttering the things, it actually starts in your mind. Like, so much of it is work that you have to do to confront, again, insecurities, or to confront that sentimentality, that pull. But there are ways that you can also like use it up. And I would say if there's something that you feel emotional towards, then you can display it, like display it in a hutch, or wear it. If you have grandmother's jewelry that you have a ton of pieces, pick a few and wear those things, give some to your kids so they're wearing them. China, use it every night, use it until it breaks. And that's okay, because why are we keeping museums of things in our home that
Right.
are just these relics that, again, once we die, someone's going to toss because they only have value to us. I think that's something, again, you have to face that. You have to face like,
Yeah.
oh, one day no one's going to care about this sweater that I own. So do I still need the sweater? Do I still wear it? If the answer is yes, then keep it. But if not, it's time to let it go.
Okay, so this is just made me think, because as you could probably tell, I have none of that. But I do have clothes and I like to buy clothes. And I
Yeah.
actually like having a lot of clothes in my closet because I feel like I'm in different scenarios and I'm like, I never know when I'm going to want that piece.
Mhm.
And you said one in and one out, right?
Yes.
Why? What is the idea behind that?
Well, one, I don't have a ton of closet space, so to me, it just keeps from having overwhelm up there. But I also think it just keeps me, I would say that's probably the biggest thing. But honestly, I had this thought recently too. I was like, you know what? All of my friends, like, I don't value them for the clothes that they wear, as I said at the beginning. And maybe I never really need to buy anything else. Like, I've kind of cultivated this wardrobe I have here at 35. I know that's some like a really radical statement. I said it to my husband the other
Yeah.
day, but I was like, I think I'm good for a while. I think I have the things that I want. Trends come and go. If you go into a Target, I think they used to have two or three floor plans. This was back in the 90s. And now they change their plans like every week. Like, they're adding new things, taking things away. And it's like, if I went to the store and had to keep up with getting something new every time I went there to be on trend or to be in style, I would never be able to keep up. Like, they
Right.
want us to feel addicted, that I say they, marketers and people trying to make money, they want us to be addicted to getting new things. And so if you can kind of just beat them
Mm.
at their own game and be like, no, for a while I'm good. Like, I have enough and it's sufficient. So again, I do love clothes. I just think you have to be realistic again of where your value comes from. And also, I will say, I'm a stay-at-home mom of 3. I do the podcast. So sometimes I'm like maybe speaking at something, or I go to church on Sunday. So like I want to look a little bit nicer there. I'm definitely not in a workplace setting where I'm in
Yeah.
New York City and I want to have the trendiest thing.
Yes.
So I
Yes.
understand that some people listening might be in those types of environment. And
Right.
again, I would say one of the wealthiest people ever to exist was Steve Jobs. And he wore a turtleneck every single day. He wore black. He had his uniform. There's someone in fashion that used to that wears a uniform as well. But I think if you just get classic pieces, again, you're
Yeah.
keeping up with something that you're never going to get. If your coworkers like you for that, or your job is writing on whether or not, I don't know, like it gets really tough to confront these things. And again, it's easy for me to say in my little Columbus area home, but
Yeah.
I think it's worth to challenge ourselves to say, like, maybe I don't need a new outfit every week or a new whatever, fill in the blank.
Well, yeah, and that's interesting too because the trend, like I've never been a trendy person. Like I like to be in style, right? So it's
Yeah.
like I'm not going to wear something that's like 20 years old. But yes, the trends come so quick in and out. And now I think with Instagram, it's very easy. You follow lifestyle influencers, fashion influencers, and you're like, oh, they look good. And I want
Mhm.
to look good too. But I do
Mhm.
feel that there is something to looking your best, then you feel your best, you act
Mhm.
your best, you perform your best. So when I was young, like this whole, and this is why my grandfather would always say to my mom working for the regs, because my mom and my grandmother loved shopping, and me and my
Mhm.
sister are about 3 years apart. And she would dress us up literally like little dolls. Like I would go to school in, like the Mary Jane shoes with like the socks and the matching bow and a full dress. And I
Mhm.
do think as a teacher, when I walk in and then there's another girl that her hair's not brushed and she has dirt under her nails and she's wearing a gross old t-shirt, like that teacher is going to pay more attention to that child that's like put together and looks good. So
Mhm.
then like
Mhm.
how do you reconcile that with saying, okay, you want to be minimalist, you want to not care, but then also you want to present to society in a certain way to say, I care about what I look like and how I'm presenting. I respect myself. You should respect me too. Right? Like
Mhm.
how do those reconcile?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I always feel like I look good. I'm like, you always like try and put yourself together. I just
Yeah.
curled my bangs today and threw my hair in a ponytail. I do have on like a
Yeah.
flannel here, but I'm like, it's a chilly day and I'm home with my kids. Your example that you're stating, so going to maybe a workplace setting, even like the
Yeah.
women that are showing up in designer labels. How do I reconcile that?
This is like
Sorry,
a very deep podcast today.
yeah. No, I just, again, it's, I will also say it is going to look different for everyone. I do believe minimalism and again, the intentional pursuit of less and intentional living. If you're someone that's an artist, you're going to have a lot more artistic crafting tools in your house than Diane, who has no interest in art, is going to have. If I
Right.
have a ton of art around my house, it's time to declutter it because I'm not using it. So maybe if you are in fashion, you're going to have more clothes, but you're going to cut down and be intentional. Like, hey, I don't like to cook. I'm eating out often. I'm going to get rid of some of this food processor and this
Mm.
tool that I don't need, this banana slicer, like these little things that like just take up space. That's precious space, especially for living in smaller homes. Um, so I do think it's going to look different for everyone. And it's okay if you have an area that you prioritize over another one.
Mm.
Again, I told my husband in bed last night, I was like, I think people would judge me as a minimalist because I have a lot of clothes and a lot of books and skincare, those 3 things. But I'm looking at my kitchen right now. I have 2 bowls. I need to get more bowls. I have 2 bowls. I have what 4 plates. I'm like, I don't even have enough kitchenware. So that's something that we might want to be more intentional about. But I also don't care. I'm like, we're not big on cooking. We just kind of use the same things over and over. I wash things right away. So it's going to look different from me in what I prioritize. Sorry, that was very redundant and
No,
long-winded.
no, I think that's a really good point. Like, and for me, it is about the priority. So there's something to like, I don't want to spend money, but then also I will spend a lot of money on certain things, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
if it's a piece
Mm-hmm.
of jewelry or like something that I have like saved for or I want, and I wouldn't even think twice about it. Like a flight to go somewhere, like however much it costs for me and my 6 people family, like I don't even question it because I'm just like, that is how I want to use my money because I've
Mhm.
not spent $100 every week at Target over the last 4 years. Like I
Yeah.
have, so you can like reallocate your funds. But for anyone who's really listening, is like, okay, I know it's important to me. Like I love clothes or I love shoes or I love like something specific. I'm not going to declutter that. Like, where do you start with the decluttering?
Mhm. Mhm. So I always recommend, look at your area as a pain point. And I've kind of gone into friends' houses and said, like, this laundry seems to be an area for you. So we should focus on your clothes. But if you're just the average person that you're like, yeah, where do I start? I would say the bathroom is a great place to start
Mm.
because you usually start and end your day in the bathroom. And usually there's not a lot of sentimental items in there that have those ties to emotion. And so you pull everything out with anything that you're decluttering, always pull everything out, empty it out, assess what you have, put back the things that you know you need and you use regularly. And then you're going to have a pile that's kind of like a limbo pile, which I like to invite over my judgy relatives to kind of help me go through some of that stuff. And then you have the donate or trash pile. You know what you don't use, expired medicine, products you're not using. And also if you're like, well, I spent so much money on that lotion, the money's gone. Get it out. Why are you allowing it to
Mm,
continue to weigh on you as well? So you've spent the money and now it's also weighing on you because you don't use it. Just get it out. And then the money, you
yeah.
can't get it back. So I would rather just get rid of things than have them, just being like these little trolls that like are like reminders of
Mm,
waste around my home. But that would be that or the entryway. I think usually we don't have a lot of sentimental
yeah.
things.
Entryway. Okay, I love all this. I feel like an easy one too is the kitchen because I
Mhm.
remember, so we just moved and I went crazy like cleaning out my
Mhm.
house. Like I was like, I want to pack nothing. Like our goal is that moving truck. I have 4 kids, my husband, and we have a nanny who lives with us. So we have like lots of bedrooms, lots of things. I was like, my goal
Mhm.
is to have a truck that's a 2-bedroom house. And they were like, well, you don't have a 2-bedroom house. I'm like, I know, but I want to get rid of all the things because I don't want to pay for the truck to carry stuff that I don't want. And we're in a rental. I'm like, to bring it into a rental that I don't even want anyways. And my
Mhm.
husband had stuff. We had lived in our previous home for 7 years. And
Mhm.
before that, we had lived in a home for 4 years. And he had boxes that he had brought to our house when we got married, our first house. We had lived there for 4 years. He had
Mhm.
moved those boxes to a house that we lived in for 7 years. Those
Mhm.
boxes were never open. And I said,
Mm.
I am not bringing those to our next house. Like, I am throwing them away. I am sorry. I
Mhm.
don't care. I know you're mad at me. Like, babe, we do not need your like t-shirts from high school. Like, you've never
Mhm.
opened this box. This is
Mhm.
crazy. So,
It's
I
the
mean, there's,
DVD thing. That's like the
yes,
DVD.
there was,
Yeah.
there was CDs in there. And I'm like,
Yeah.
download it. Like, you don't
Mhm.
need these. And
And
the CD
everything's
box,
streaming.
yes, you
Everything's
don't
streaming.
need any of that. Okay,
Mhm.
so start in the bathroom, start in the entryway, maybe kitchen, and just pull it all out of the cabinets, you're saying though, and then just kind of assess and put in buckets. This is like the Marie Kondo, is that right? Method?
She has a little bit different of a process than I would say. And I don't know if I would say kitchen to start with, just because it's usually a
Oh
bigger
no,
space. I think it's a
got
bigger
it.
space. I think that
Overwhelming,
you
you're
should
saying.
start in smaller spaces that get that muscle strengthened, and then move on. The kitchen would be third, easily
Got
third.
it. Okay. And then what about being minimalist with kids?
Yeah. So one of my biggest tips, sorry for anyone that's heard me speak before, but I always say visual boundaries have been really helpful for us. So shelves, different cabinets, once those things are full, it's time to go through it before it's kind of like the one in, one out thing. We're not going to add more birthday toys or Christmas toys until we've gone through this and made some room for the incoming toys. And also, I think it gives our kids a way to be generous. And I know that I'm sure someone's listening and they're like, oh, generous giving to people with less than, you're giving your old toys, aren't, why not buy them new toys? And I understand that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
also, again, this is a muscle we have to strengthen and we have to start somewhere. So right before Christmas, we kind of just go through and we talk about kids that don't have things. And then we'll do like the Christmas shoe boxes for kids in other countries. Just again, we'll get rid of stuff, but we'll also try and do something nice for kids that don't have. And I don't know, it just gets conversations going. And I think with little ones, you can kind of just get the stuff out. But for my 6-year-old, I usually allow him to be part of the process because I want them to have their own autonomy with their things. And also I don't want this to all backfire on me one day. So, I just kind of allow them some say and just recognition of what they're playing with. Like, hey, buddy, are you really playing with this right now? I haven't seen you pick up the blocks, and just observe and see what they play with. And it doesn't have to go away. It can go into a little limbo, maybe in the closet or the basement or attic. And then if they don't notice it or ask for it for a month or so, I would get rid of it.
Interesting. Well, so when we were moving here, it was like I was literally just putting stuff in trash bags, and then we would bring it to a donation center. And then there was stuff that was needed to be thrown out, but like for the most part, if it's like a puzzle nobody's played with, I know all the pieces are like it's in good condition, sure, we'll put it in. Everything I was putting in, my kids were like, that I love that, it's my favorite. I'm like, listen, you have not touched this in 2 years. I've seen it like in the back of the closet, and they're like, but I need it. And I think part of our last house, we had a bedroom that we called a playroom, and it was a really big bedroom, and it had huge closet. So there was just so much room for all the stuff. Now where we're renting is a lot smaller. So it's like there are not spots for all these toys or all these clothes. Like you said, like if your closet is smaller, then you don't have space for clothes. So I think part of that too is just like, you also don't need to fill up every single spot, right?
Oh, yeah. No, you definitely don't. And that's something that I told my husband. I'm like, I want to keep shelves in this house empty. We don't need to fill every cabinet just because it exists. And so far, so good. I think that also with rooms, people were like, oh, you don't have any furniture because we are getting so much more square footage. And it's like, well, the rooms are allowed to be sparse. And also, I don't want to buy anything just because I have to fill a space. I really want to love the things that I own. And I think that's another one of the biggest takeaways of trying to be intentional with my life. Is just like, I want to love everything that I own. And when I stop loving it, then why do I still own it? And it's going to be a constant assessment. And I think with kids, again, giving them their ability, their autonomy to bring things in that you may not want, but it is such a short season that I don't know. I'm willing to, I guess, sacrifice some of that. There's so many things that we could we've just kind of scratched the surface on it. But I think that the biggest thing that you can do, even if your household isn't on board with it, even if your kids aren't on board or your husband, you are in control of your things. And so, why would you not try and get those things under control that are controllable when everything in the world is kind of outside of our control? Our kids aren't in our control. My kid just interrupted my interview, even though I asked them to stay upstairs. It's like, there are things that are not going to be under my control, but if I can control my closet or the skincare that I have, or the foods that I'm buying for the family, like those types of things, why would I not?
Yeah. No, I love that. So it's like start with yourself and then try to get the husband on the board, try to get the kids on board, but at a minimum, like you can control what you can control. Oh my gosh, I love this conversation. I did read the Marie Kondo book, and that is when I started thinking about like just getting rid of everything in my house. Her thing is touch it, and if it doesn't bring you joy or look at it, then it's time to go and there's no kind of purpose for it. But I love your ideas too on the decluttering and being sentimental and just like really taking a step back and being intentional. I'm super excited to listen to your podcast, and I flipped through a couple of the episodes of like, ooh, these are good. Diane, tell everybody where they can find you.
So the podcast is Minimalist Moms Podcast. It's available anywhere you listen to podcasts. I also have a book. It's called Minimalist Moms, Living and Parenting with Simplicity. It is for beginners. So I do recommend it for people just kind of starting out in their pursuits of living with less. I have a new ebook that I've just recently released for newborn and postpartum decluttering. And again, that has to do a little bit more with mindset, but that's on my website, minimalistmomspodcast.com. And then I think that's all. But yeah, it's not just minimalism. I hope that people see that minimalism is an umbrella, and I really just want to live with intentionality, simply, slower. And so I'm talking to people and creatives within that umbrella and that realm. So many different topics we're discussing here.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Have a wonderful day.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.